This week on ANN, Seventh-day Adventists around the world continue their support of those impacted by the crisis in Eastern Europe.
President of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church, Ted N.C. Wilson, calls for renewed prayer.
And the Adventist Development and Relief Agency provides relief and humanitarian aid to the more than 1 million people fleeing Ukraine.
These stories and more coming up.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, Seventh-day Adventist members around the world are continuing to pray for the conflict in Eastern Europe, especially Ukraine.
On Friday, March 4, Ted N.C. Wilson, president of the Adventist World Church, renewed his call for urgent prayer, saying, "I am renewing an appeal for special prayer for our church members and all people in Ukraine, Russia, Eastern Europe, the Euro-Asia Division, Inter-European Division, and the Trans-European Division."
Wilson asked that church members pray for all those impacted by the violence and for the humanitarian work done by the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, in Ukraine and the surrounding countries.
Wilson said, "May God come close to all those affected by this very difficult and challenging crisis. Let us lean on Christ at all times and in all circumstances as we come closer to his soon second coming. The signs tell us we are in the last days of Earth's history. Jesus is coming. Get involved."
ADRA is working in Ukraine, Romania, Poland, and the surrounding countries to bring relief and care to the more than 1 million people fleeing the conflict. This week, Communication Director for ADRA International, Iris Argueta, talked to the emergency response team from Romania about what they are doing to help during the ongoing crisis.
Hello, everybody. I'm Iris Argueta, and I'm at the ADRA headquarters in the U.S. We've been talking to our emergency response team in Ukraine and in the other countries that are supporting the refugees. Today, we spoke to the Romanian emergency response team, where ADRA is helping the refugees as they cross the border. Let's hear what they had to say. We're talking to Bogdan Stanica, Gabriela Istrate, and Wile Cotrutza, and they are helping us with the refugees in that section of Romania right now. What is the mission in the field for you?
De a le oferi un loc de cazare, de a le oferi îndrumare și produse de primă necesitate.
From Vili's point of view, the main mission is to provide them everything they need, shelter, main kits, hygiene kits, and everything they need as soon as they get in the country.
Describe the situation on the ground.
În primul rând, este foarte frig, afară ninge și lucrul acesta face ca situația ucrainienilor care vin în țara noastră și fug din fața războiului este și mai dificilă.
First of all, it's very cold outside, it's snowing, and this makes the situation for immigrants more and more difficult.
Sunt multe mame care vin însoțite de copiii lor, mame singure care au fost nevoite să plece pentru a salva viața lor și a copiilor lor.
We are dealing with a lot of mothers, single mothers, with their children who are forced to leave Ukraine to save their lives and their children's lives.
Sunt speriate, sunt cu ochii lacrimați și sunt cumva îngrozite de ceea ce le așteaptă mai departe pe ele și pe copiii lor.
They are frightened, they are crying, very big fear of what will come for them and what is expecting for them, because they don't know what to expect.
Can you describe the kind of provisions you are providing the refugees?
De asemenea, oferim și alimente copiilor și adulților care vin aici, alimente pe care le pot consuma acolo, plus kituri de igienă de urgență.
We also provide for them food that can be eaten right there on the spot, and also hygiene kits they can use there.
Pe lângă aceasta, fiind frig, oferim hăinuțe, pături, fulare, mănuși și alte haine pentru a putea încălzi copilașii.
And because it's very cold outside, it's freezing cold outside, we are offering them blankets and warm clothes for them and for their kids to stay warm and to stay healthy.
What can you tell the Adventist Church and other supporters that want to help?
Suntem aici, alături de ei și mă bucur foarte mult pentru că echipa ADRA încearcă să facă tot ceea ce poate mai bine pentru refugiații care vin în România.
We ensure you that we are here and ADRA team is here for all the people who are crossing the border, and we are trying to do our best for them.
Va fi nevoie de intervenția noastră pe termen lung pentru refugiații care vin din Ucraina?
Our intervention will be needed for long term for Ukraine immigrants.
ADRA este agenția umanitară a Bisericii Adventiste de ziua 7.
ADRA is the Seventh-day Adventist Church, first hand.
Iar ea oferă compasiune oamenilor care sunt în nevoie.
And ADRA is providing compassion for those in need.
Mulțumim foarte mult tuturor celor care sunt alături de ADRA și ne sprijină în proiectul acesta special în care suntem acum, în ajutorul pe care îl oferim emigranților sau refugiaților din Ucraina.
We thank everybody who is involved in our project for helping Ukrainian immigrants. Every help you can provide for us, it's crucial. Every aspect of involving with our cause and our work, it's crucial for us, and it's crucial for them, for immigrants they have all they get, they leave home and cross the border in order to flee the war behind them. If you want to help, just go to adra.org/help now.
Thank you for supporting ADRA. We'll bring you more messages from our response team in Ukraine and from the nearby countries that are supporting the refugees.
ADRA Romania is stepping up to assist those affected by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which began February 24. ADRA Romania is coordinating a newly minted Hope for Ukraine initiative, which seeks to help those affected by the war, meeting their immediate needs by providing information, food, clothing, shelter, social assistance, and psychological support. ADRA Romania President Robert Georgescu says that the refugee situation is a call for responsibility and compassion to give priority to life and human dignity. There are real people with sad stories about suffering and loss, as well as hope and motivation. There are people I have never met but who need help. On February 27, the ADRA humanitarian convoy arrived in Ukraine. Thousands of donated items, mattresses, blankets, pillows, linen, hygiene products, medicines, and food supplements were distributed in Chernivtsi. A significant portion was transferred to other vans and transported to Kiev and other areas of the country. According to information received from local authorities in late February, since the beginning of the war, ADRA Romania is the only humanitarian organization that has made a donation export, with the exception of another donation made by a monastery in the area. ADRA's Hope for Ukraine humanitarian convoy did not encounter any difficulties, leaders reported.
ADRA, along with Adventist church members, are also helping in Poland. 70 Adventist churches in Poland are becoming shelters for Ukrainian refugees. It is estimated, as of the time of this recording, that nearly 550,000 refugees have crossed the Polish border.
ADRA in Poland is working in cooperation with local churches and a large number of volunteers to show solidarity with refugees from Ukraine.
The Adventist Church in Poland, with its 6,000 members, has prepared more than 1,200 places for refugees in church properties and private homes. So far, 400 people have benefited from the assistance.
ADRA Poland volunteers have visited several border and reception crossings, handing out parcels and organizing accommodation while assessing the most urgent needs of the refugees. ADRA has also started preparing start packages, a set of basic personal hygiene items for people crossing the border.
The Adventist Scouting Association and Pathfinders groups have organized collections all over Poland. The young people have collected sleeping bags, mats, blankets, pillows, and much more. The donations were sent to Western Ukraine, to which Eastern Ukrainians are fleeing.
After 9 days of conflict, more than 1 million people have fled Ukraine. The Adventist Church, through ADRA and church members, have worked to help provide relief and aid to those in need of shelter, food, and much more.
Please continue to pray for those impacted by this crisis. If you want to support ADRA, visit adra.org for more information on ways to help during this time.
For daily, up-to-date information on the crisis in Ukraine and what Adventists are doing in the region, visit adventist.news.
Coming up, The doors to 2022 General Conference session are open to the public.
But up next, Adventist World Radio launches a new station in the Southern Africa Indian Ocean region.
Dear VL, I can't even remember how long we've been staying at home now because of this virus. For now, it's just nice to hear your voice and see your face. Nothing beats playing outside in the dirt though. Which reminds me, are your hands clean? Yes! Mommy and Daddy says not a lot of kids get COVID-19, but it's always nice to be extra safe. We should wash our hands before picking our nose. Washing our hands protects us, but it also keeps us from spreading the virus in case we touch something dirty. Let's always be clean and safe, okay? Love, Joey.
Welcome back.
Heavy rainfall caused unprecedented flooding in New South Wales and Queensland, with estimated damages of $1.4 billion so far. Adventist Development and Relief Agency volunteers and local Adventist church members are joining efforts to assist the flood-ravaged communities.
With most floodwaters beginning to recede, many church members dedicated the weekend to meet the urgent needs in the community.
In Lockyer Valley, Queensland, the Gatton Adventist Church is running an evacuation center serving the worst affected since the start of the flood. Volunteers have also provided meals, clothing, and bedding items to the community.
Assisting the community with the cleanup, members of the Innovation Adventist Church from North Lakes dedicated their Sabbath to help a family that lost everything to the floods. Ipswich Church gathered volunteers and organized a community cleanup operation on Sunday.
According to a recent report from ADRA, due to flooding and M1 closures, a severe food shortage has developed in the north region of New South Wales from Kingscliff to Lismore, with food, water, and fuel listed as the primary needs.
Other food shortage responses are being organized. Sanitarium Health Food Company has offered to donate food supplies for 12,000 families to be delivered at Kingscliff and Ocean Shores Adventist churches and distributed across the North New South Wales affected region.
With the situation still developing and the potential of flash flooding still viable, church members are encouraged to pray for the affected areas.
We have some good news now. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is pleased to announce that a General Conference, or GC session, will be opening its doors to the public. All are welcome to attend the business session and evening programs. The GC session is the quinquennial meeting of the Adventist Church's Executive Committee, its largest governing body, and will be held in St. Louis, Missouri, June 6 through 11, 2022. The health and safety of all attendees is the top priority. Therefore, the GC session will have enhanced sanitation, ample space to accommodate social distancing, as well as other safety measures and guidelines recommended by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The Adventist Church will continue monitoring ongoing coronavirus developments and will assess and adapt as necessary to keep everyone safe. GC session will be held at the Americas Center Complex in St. Louis. You can access the most current updates and information by visiting gcsession.org.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church is praising God that the official church YouTube channel has been restored. The channel had been offline since YouTube removed it for violating community guidelines. The Communication Department of the Adventist World Church, in consultation with the Office of General Counsel, appealed the decision twice, first on Monday, February 28, and again on March 3. On March 4, the Adventist Church asked church members on Twitter to pray for the channel to be restored and to repost, tagging YouTube asking for the appeal to be heard. On Saturday, March 5, the channel was restored. Communication Director of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church, Williams Costa Jr., says, "The Seventh-day Adventist Church's YouTube channel is vital in sharing Jesus and his love with others. We were devastated to see it taken down, but God has shown us he is always working. We have been amazed and inspired by the prayers and support of our church members. God answered their prayers, and we are incredibly grateful."
It's a new day in Southern African Indian Ocean Division, or SID, as they launch their new Adventist World Radio and Seed Media radio station.
As we champion our I Will Go strategic plan, digital evangelism continues to be a formidable tool in reaching out and pointing others to Christ.
Noel Sibanda, Communication and Media Center Director for SID, gives us the story.
There was joy and jubilation at the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division headquarters in Pretoria in South Africa when the long-awaited Seed Media Adventist World Radio station was officially launched. More than 150 people attended this prestigious event from both the SID, Seed Media family and the invited guests. Dressed in their African regalia, the guests made sure that this was the day to remember. The guest of honor, Mr. Emmanuel Ogwal from Uganda, who is also the Adventist World Radio Africa Regional Director, applauded the historic launch, calling it a game changer in evangelism.
There are so many supporters of Adventist World Radio who are very inspired to see the message of salvation reach out to the world.
The launch of this radio station will complement the church's strategic plan of I Will Go, as we all intensify the spreading of the gospel using all forms of media platforms. Radio is indeed one of those platforms that can reach some of the remote areas in our division, the so-called unentered areas or 1040 window. The president of the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division, Dr. Solomon Maposa, commended the media ministry, saying this was the best news and music to his ears as the church embraces media evangelism as a tool of reaching out.
I have been in radio myself. I have used radio myself. I have seen the power of radio.
Taking to the airwaves, the Adventist World Radio Seed Media Station manager Sipho Kaleni could not hide his excitement as he harvested the first fruits during his drive time show entitled Maranatha Drive. Just as the motto for the Adventist World Radio says, from broadcast to baptism, Sister Grace Mawoka, who tuned into the second day of our live broadcast, phoned to say she wants to give her life to Jesus, and what a mighty God we serve. The first fruit from Maranatha Drive is a sure sign that God's hand is at play, and we give him praise and glory for all this work. For the Adventist News Network, this is Noah Spanda reporting from Pretoria in South Africa.
Coming up, Michael Yonker is here for This Week in Adventist History.
But up next, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency in New Zealand has a special program for their community.
We may look, pray, read, think, worship, sing, and share differently, but we all look forward to the Sabbath. And we all look forward to the future when Jesus will come again. With this message in mind, we arrived at a core component for a new identity system, the creation grid, a simple 7-column structure for layout. The grid is a reference both to the prophetic timeline as well as to the creation week that culminated in the seventh-day Sabbath. The first 6 columns of the grid belong to the designer. They can be filled with anything: text, images, illustrations, patterns, and logos. But the 7th column, the Sabbath column, does not belong to them. It is meant to be different and special. Regardless of what or where you are designing, you can always find information to help you communicate that we are all Seventh-day Adventists.
Welcome back.
Every Tuesday, the Kaitaia Adventist Church hosts a kids program in partnership with ADRA New Zealand.
The Kaitaia Community Project, as the name suggests, is for the community. Not only are families helped by the project, but those who volunteer gain a blessing too.
Adventist Mission has more.
For most people, Tuesday is just a normal day in the middle of the week. However, for the community around the Kaitaia Seventh-day Adventist Church, Tuesdays have become more than just a normal day.
So every Tuesday we have what's called a kids program. We start off with a meal for the kids because they come in hungry. After that we have set activities set up for them, and the kids just love being part of that.
But the project was not always like that. It started in a very simple way.
Some years ago, before we started this program, our church was like a theological museum, just in the street, but not part of the street. And we needed a way to be able to connect with that community and bring those two groups of people together. And we want to mix, get to know each other, and spend time together. And so that's been the flavour of our community meal program.
Bringing them into the community was good for them, and it was good for me to see, because I love watching them play with other kids and get to know other kids and do all the activities and be proud of themselves, like, oh Mom, did you see, I coloured this and I was playing and I won, and I'm like, oh cool.
The whole family environment here, they're very welcoming. That's something that I have really noticed about being here, and you just feel part of the family, and that's kind of what it is. It's just a big family.
The Kaitaia Community Project, as the name suggests, is for the community. Not only are children and their families being affected, but those involved are being touched by this movement as well. Like Brian, who came to town looking just for a home, but he found much more than that.
I saw the notice outside saying a community meal, and I heard that it was a vegetarian meal. I like vegetarian food, so I came in and it seemed really good.
Every Tuesday evening there's children's group, and in the children's group the children are nourished both body and soul. I get hugs from the children sometimes, and I love that.
This whole project wouldn't be possible without the special support of ADRA New Zealand.
ADRA is the Adventist Development and Relief Agency. We are the humanitarian arm of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and effectively we have international projects where we help families or communities in need. And then here in New Zealand specifically, we look at some of the needs that there are throughout our communities, and through our churches we then meet some of those needs through the community initiatives that we have. Kaitaia Church is doing an amazing job, and ADRA loves working with Kaitaia Church because of the impact that they're having in their local community. And for us, it's about reaching as many people as we can and helping as many families in the community to thrive. So by partnering with Kaitaia, we're able to maximise the impact that they have in their community.
The process is this, that as they come in and they feel the love that we have for them and the concern that we have for them as people, and the fact that they're coming into a safe place and they enjoy their Tuesdays, that they will want more of this.
Willing hearts, open minds, anything is possible. And with God, of course, that is exactly what happened.
And then so I came back on the Saturday to the church, and I really enjoyed it because I've never been to a Christian service in my whole life before.
I loved the project, and my kids loved the project, and I loved the church, so I started bringing them on Saturday.
Simple gestures like these are the things that actually connect us at a much deeper level. They show us that kindness can overcome indifference, that life is precious, and most importantly, not only can we hope for a better future, but we can help make it happen. You can be a change maker in your community as well. Just find your local Seventh-day Adventist Church or get in touch with the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, ADRA, to see how you can make it a reality.
Watch this and other mission stories online by visiting adventistmission.org. Then click on videos at the top.
And finally, for today's episode, let's turn to Michael Yonker for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we hear about the ministry of Uriah Smith and a publishing house in Indonesia.
This week in Adventist history, we look back on the early publishing work, and in particular on one of its most important figures. Sadly, on March 6, 1903, the Adventist Church lost one of its most prominent figures, the indelible Uriah Smith, in Battle Creek, Michigan. His work will be forever imprinted, quite literally, as a longtime editor of the Review and Herald and the author of some of our most important books, such as Daniel and the Revelation, which has been reprinted numerous times. Overall, he dedicated over 50 years of his life in service to the Seventh-day Adventist cause. Born in West Wilton, New Hampshire, he was impressed in childhood by the Advent movement of 1843-44. Though it may have taken away some outdoor ambitions he may have had, when about 13 years of age, because of an infection, his left leg was amputated above the knee. But he took this loss and turned it into gain for his passion for reading and writing. About the end of 1852, he became a Sabbath-keeping Adventist. His first contribution to SDA literature was a 35,000-word poem entitled The Warning Voice of Time and Prophecy. It was being published as a serial in the Review and Herald in 1853 when he joined his sister Annie as a worker at the office of the Advent Review and Sabbath Herald in Rochester, New York. In 1855, the Review and Herald moved to Battle Creek, Michigan, and that same year, when Smith was just 23 years of age, his name appeared for the first time as editor. He maintained an almost unbroken connection with the institution until the time of his passing in 1903. Also this week, concerning the publishing work, it was on March 10, 1920, that the Indonesia publishing house, Persitakan Advent Indonesia, was dedicated in Singapore. After the Dutch government in 1911 had declined to grant permission for the Adventist Church to do missionary work in Sukabumi, the first press was moved to Jakarta. It was later sold and moved to Singapore. Following that, it was moved again in 1929 to Bandung, Java, where it remains today. Publications are issued in the Indonesian language, and it continues operation today under the West and East Indonesia unions. That is This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Did you know the Adventist Church has a YouTube channel where you can watch ANN Video, ANN In-Depth, and plenty other amazing videos on prophecy, health, and Bible study?
Just go to YouTube and search for the Adventist Church. Click the subscribe button to make sure you're caught up each week.
And remember, leave a comment or a prayer request. We have people who are praying for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 15 through 18.
The passage says, "Make sure that nobody pays back wrong for wrong, but always strive to do what is good for each other and for everyone else. Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus."
That's our program for this week, and remember, you can always visit Adventist.news for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.